A guy in Texas paid $1,400 for a used Nissan Frontier. Drove it home. Loved it. 3 weeks later, the engine seized. Total repair bill? Over $9,800. And the worst part? The dealership he bought it from knew exactly what was wrong. One bolt. One tiny, ignored bolt destroyed the entire engine. And today, I'm going to show you exactly which bolt it is, where it lives, how to check it in under 5 minutes, and why skipping this single step is the most expensive mistake a used Frontier buyer can make. Stay with me, because what I'm about to show you is the kind of insider knowledge most mechanics won't tell you until after they've already charged you. Let's be honest about something. The Nissan Frontier has a reputation. It's the tough little truck that just keeps going. 4-cylinder or V6, people swear by these things. And in many ways, that reputation is earned. But here's the thing about reputation. It makes buyers drop their guard. When a truck has the word reliable attached to it, buyers stop looking closer. They stop asking questions. They assume the truck will handle whatever life throws at it. And that assumption is exactly what the used car market exploits. See, the Frontier, specifically the second-generation models from 2005 all the way through 2021, has a design quirk in its engine lubrication system that creates one of the most dangerous silent failure points in the used truck market today. It's not talked about in the brochure. It's not something most buyers discover on a test drive. And it's not something a basic Carfax report is going to catch. It lives in a single bolt. And when that bolt fails, or when it's been over-tightened, under-torqued, or simply neglected, what follows is a chain reaction that can cost you anywhere from $6,000 to over $11,000 in repairs. We're talking full engine rebuild territory. So before you buy a used Frontier, or if you already own one, you need to understand what this bolt is, what it controls, and why it matters more than almost anything else under that hood. This next part is what destroys engines completely. To understand why this bolt is so dangerous, you need to understand how oil flows through the Frontier's engine. Here's the basic picture. When you start your engine, the oil pump immediately pressurizes the oil system. That pressurized oil travels through channels, called oil galleries, and it lubricates every critical moving part: the crankshaft, the rod bearings, the camshaft, the valve train. Without that pressurized flow, metal grinds against metal. And metal grinding against metal at 2,000 to 4,000 RPM is a death sentence for any engine. Now, the Frontier's 4.0L V6, the VQ40DE engine, is a genuinely solid motor. It's not a bad design. But like all engines, it has specific maintenance requirements that must be met precisely. And one of those requirements revolves around the oil pressure relief system. Inside the engine, there is a pressure relief valve. Its job is to regulate oil pressure, making sure the system doesn't get overpressurized and making sure oil keeps moving to where it needs to go. That valve is secured and serviced through a specific plug bolt. And this is where most owners get trapped. That bolt, specifically the oil pressure switch and its surrounding plug assembly, is made of aluminum threads going into an aluminum block. And aluminum, under heat and torque cycles, does something mechanics call thread fatigue. Over time, those threads weaken. They stretch. They begin to lose their grip. And when they fail, oil escapes the pressurized system. Pressure drops, and your engine starts dying from the inside out, often without triggering a single warning light until it's already too late. Let me get specific, because specificity is what saves your wallet. On the Nissan Frontier's VQ40DE V6 engine, and on some of the 2.5L 4-cylinder variants, there are two components that every used buyer must physically inspect before purchasing. First, the oil pressure switch, also called the oil pressure sensor. It's threaded into the engine block, typically located on the passenger side near the oil filter housing. On many Frontiers, it sits in a position that's slightly recessed, which means sellers and dealers often never look at it. Second, the drain plug and its associated crush washer situation on the oil pan, which we'll come back to in a moment because that's its own disaster waiting to happen. But right now, let's focus on the oil pressure switch. This component has a connector, a small electrical plug, and a threaded body that screws into the block. The problem develops in layers. First, the switch itself can fail internally, giving you inaccurate pressure readings. Most owners don't know this because a faulty switch doesn't always trigger a dashboard light. It can simply give you a false all clear while the actual system is compromised. Second, and this is the one that costs people thousands, the threads where this switch seats into the block can strip. And when a previous owner or a cut-rate mechanic over-tightened this component during an oil change or sensor replacement, you're looking at damaged threads that will never properly seal again. What happens then? The seal leaks, slowly at first. Just enough that you lose a quart of oil over a few hundred miles and think, my Frontier always burns a little oil, that's normal. You top it off. You keep driving. But wait, it gets worse. Because a leaking oil pressure switch location doesn't just lose oil. It also introduces air into the pressurized system. And air in your oil system is catastrophic. Air doesn't lubricate. Air compresses. Air turns your rod bearings, those small but critical components that keep your crankshaft alive, into ticking time bombs. The engine sounds fine, until one day you hear a knock, a deep rhythmic knock from the bottom end. That sound has a nickname in the mechanic world. They call it the death rattle. And once you hear it, you're already looking at a minimum of $6,000 in bottom-end engine repairs. More likely $8,500 to $11,000 for a full rebuild or engine swap, plus labor, plus the tow, plus the rental car you need while your truck sits in the shop for 2 to 3 weeks. Now here's the part that makes this particularly dangerous in the used market. New Frontier buyers have warranties. They have dealer service records. They have documentation. Used buyers are flying blind. Think about what happens to a Frontier between year 1 and year 8 of its life. Multiple oil changes, multiple different people doing those oil changes. Some at dealerships, some at quick lube shops, some in their driveway with a socket wrench and no torque spec. And every single one of those oil changes involves someone working near that oil pressure switch. Every change involves that oil drain plug. Every change is an opportunity for an undertrained tech to over-tighten a fitting, strip a thread, or cross-thread a sensor back in place. And here's what makes it a silent killer. When threads strip on an aluminum block, the bolt or sensor can actually feel tight to whoever installed it. It goes in, it stops, it feels snug, but it's not properly seated. It's sitting on damaged threads that won't hold under pressure and heat. The seller drives the truck. Everything seems fine. They list it. Someone buys it. And almost nobody catches this in time. Here's a real scenario I want to walk you through. Marcus, a buyer in Georgia, found a 2014 Nissan Frontier Pro 4X with 94,000 miles. Clean title. One previous owner, a landscaping company. Looked rough on the outside, but ran okay on the test drive. He paid $16,500. Within 90 days, his oil light flickered once on the highway. He pulled over. Oil level looked okay on the dipstick. He drove on. 2 weeks later, that death rattle. His mechanic found 2 things. 1, the oil pressure switch had been over-tightened at some point, damaging the threads and causing a micro-leak that slowly starved the rod bearings of consistent lubrication. 2, the previous owner's fleet maintenance team had been using the wrong viscosity oil, 5W30, instead of the recommended 5W40, which accelerated bearing wear. Engine was gone. Marcus paid $9,200 for a used JDM engine swap, plus labor. His $16,500 truck just became a $25,700 truck. One bolt check, taking literally 4 minutes, would have saved him $9,200. But here's the scary part. This isn't even the only bolt you need to check. I told you we'd come back to the oil drain plug situation. Here it is. The Nissan Frontier's oil pan, especially on the VQ40DE, uses a magnetic drain plug with a crush washer. That crush washer is a single-use component. It's designed to be replaced every single oil change. Take a guess at how many previous owners actually replaced it. If the vehicle had 10 oil changes in its life, there's a very realistic chance that crush washer was replaced maybe once. If you're lucky, twice. What does a worn crush washer do? It fails to seal properly. And a drain plug that doesn't seal properly drips oil. Slowly, steadily, right onto your hot exhaust components. Now you've got 2 problems. Problem 1, you're losing oil. Not fast enough to be obvious, but fast enough that over 1,000 miles, you might be down half a quart. And if you're the kind of driver who only checks oil at every other fill-up, you're gambling with your engine every single mile. Problem 2, oil dripping onto hot exhaust creates smoke. That smoke can be misread as an engine issue. Or worse, if you park in dry grass or leaves, you're looking at a fire risk. And here's the mechanic insider knowledge that most people never hear. A worn drain plug thread on the oil pan is one of the most common reasons engines get overfilled with oil too. Here's why. A tech notices a slight drip at the drain plug. Instead of properly re-tapping the thread or replacing the oil pan, which takes time and costs money, they over-tighten it. The thread strips slightly. Now it leaks more. So next oil change, someone adds extra oil thinking the engine is consuming it. Now you've got overfilled oil, which causes crankcase pressure buildup, which blows seals, which starts leaking oil in places you cannot easily see. It's a chain reaction, and every link in that chain costs money. On the used market, you will almost never know the drain plug history of a vehicle. You have to inspect it yourself. This is what I mean when I say the Frontier's reputation works against buyers. People trust the truck's name and stop looking at the details. The details are where the money is. Okay, here's the part that actually saves you money. Whether you're looking at a used Frontier right now or you own one and haven't done this check yet, here's exactly what to do. Step 1. Get the truck on a level surface and let it sit for at least 15 minutes after the engine has been running. You want the oil to settle, the engine to cool slightly, and the pressure to normalize. Step 2. Do a cold visual inspection from underneath the vehicle. Use a flashlight. Your phone works fine. Look up at the underside of the engine near the oil pan. Look at the drain plug specifically. What do you want to see? Nothing. No oil residue. No darkening around the plug. No fresh oil seeping. What you don't want to see? Any wet residue around the plug. A shiny, oily ring around the drain bolt means someone has been dealing with a leaking drain for a while. The older and darker that oil residue is, the longer the problem has existed. Step 3. Locate the oil pressure switch. On the VQ40DE, look to the passenger side of the engine block, near the oil filter. It has an electrical connector plugged into it, a small single-wire or two-wire pigtail. Again, use your light. Look for oil seeping around the base of where the switch threads into the block. Fresh oil at that location means an active leak. Baked dark oil residue means a previous leak that was either repaired or stopped temporarily. Either finding should give you serious pause. Step 4. Wiggle test. With the engine cold and off, gently grab the oil pressure switch. There should be zero movement. If you feel any give, any wobble, any play, those threads are compromised. Walk away from that truck. Step 5. Check the oil itself. Pull the dipstick. Look at the color. Fresh oil should be amber or light brown. Dark black oil isn't automatically a disaster. It darkens with use, but black oil that also smells burnt, or oil that has a slightly foamy or milky appearance, means coolant or water intrusion. That's a whole separate disaster category. And here's one more check that almost nobody talks about. Start the truck and watch the oil pressure gauge, or listen for the oil pressure warning light. It should illuminate for 1 to 2 seconds on startup, and then go off as pressure builds. If it flickers after that, even once, or if it stays on for more than 3 seconds after startup, you're looking at a compromised oil system. Do not buy that truck. This entire process takes 4 to 5 minutes, and it can save you $8,000 to $10,000. If you're finding this valuable, and I think you are, go ahead and subscribe right now. Because every week I'm pulling back the curtain on exactly these kinds of hidden mechanical landmines on popular used trucks. The stuff mechanics know that buyers never hear until it's already cost them. Let's keep going, because we're not done with the Frontier yet. This next part is what destroys engines completely, and it's the reason I say the oil pressure issue and the drain plug are not even the most dangerous overlooked problem on used Frontiers. That title belongs to the VTC solenoid. VTC stands for Variable Timing Control. It's part of the Frontier's VVEL, Variable Valve Event and Lift, system that manages when and how far the intake valves open. It's a sophisticated system that helps the engine deliver power efficiently across different RPM ranges. And it has one enemy, dirty oil. The VTC solenoid is an oil pressure actuated component. It uses pressurized engine oil to adjust valve timing. And when the oil that runs through it is contaminated, when it's old, degraded, full of metallic particles from bearing wear, or just simply the wrong viscosity, the solenoid clogs. A clogged VTC solenoid causes something called valve timing retardation. The camshaft timing falls out of its optimal range. The engine compensates, but it does so by working harder, burning more fuel, and generating more heat. Long term, the valve train begins wearing asymmetrically. You get uneven valve seating. You get carbon buildup on the back of the intake valves, a known issue on direct injection engines that share the Frontier's design DNA. And here's where the bolt connection comes back. The VTC solenoid is heavily dependent on clean, correctly pressurized oil. If your oil pressure switch is compromised, if you've been losing pressure or getting inaccurate readings, your VTC system has been running with inconsistent actuation. That means every mile that oil pressure switch has been leaking or misfiring, your valve timing has been potentially off. And the longer it runs off, the more mechanical wear you've been accumulating silently. This is why mechanics call these issues stacked failures. One small thing degrades. That degradation stresses a second component. The second component degrades. That stresses a third. And by the time you notice anything, by the time you hear a tick, a knock, or see a warning light, you're not fixing one problem. You're fixing 3. The average stacked failure scenario on a Frontier with a compromised oil system runs between $7,500 and $13,000 by the time it's all resolved. That's assuming you catch it before the engine requires full replacement. If you don't catch it, you're looking at a $4,500 to $6,500 engine, used with unknown mileage, plus $2,500 to $3,500 in labor, plus towing, plus downtime, plus the rental car. Stack all of that up and you're north of $10,000 on a truck you paid $14,000 for. That truck just became the most expensive deal you ever made. Let's talk about the used market directly, because there's something important that buyers need to understand about how vehicles with these issues get sold. A Frontier with a compromised oil pressure switch, one that's leaking slowly, doesn't announce itself. The seller has been driving it, adding a quart here, chalking it up to normal consumption. Maybe they've seen a flicker of the oil pressure warning at a stoplight and convinced themselves it was just a sensor. They list the truck. They disclose nothing because, and this is the part that should make you uncomfortable, they genuinely may not know how serious it is. Or they know and they're hoping you won't check. Either way, the result for you is the same. You inherit the problem. Dealers at the auction level are even more concerning. A truck that comes through a wholesale auction has been looked at for exactly long enough to determine if it starts, shifts, and rolls. No compression test, no oil system inspection, no VTC solenoid assessment. It gets a detailed job, 4 photos, and a runs great listing. And the certification programs, the so-called certified pre-owned labels from independent used car lots, those vary wildly in what they actually cover. Many of them do a 125-point inspection that doesn't include oil system pressure testing or thread integrity checks on oil side components. So you're handed a piece of paper that says certified and you feel safe. You are not safe. The only person who can protect your money is you. And the only way to do that is to know what to look for and to look for it yourself, or to hire a trusted independent mechanic to do a pre-purchase inspection before you sign anything. A pre-purchase inspection from an independent mechanic runs $100 to $175 typically. Compare that to $9,800 in engine repairs. This is the most straightforward math in automotive ownership. Not all Frontiers carry equal risk. Let me break this down by model year so you know exactly where the danger zones are. 2005 through 2012, highest risk. These are the early second-generation trucks. The VQ40DE was still being refined in these years. Oil consumption issues are more frequently reported in owner forums and NHTSA complaint databases for this era. Thread wear issues on the oil pressure switch location are most commonly documented in trucks from this window. If you're shopping in this range, be extra thorough with your inspection. Additionally, trucks in this model year range are now 13 to 21 years old. Even with low mileage, age-related seal degradation is a real factor. Rubber degrades. Gaskets shrink. Oil seepage in a 2008 Frontier with 75,000 miles isn't just a maintenance issue, it's an age issue. Factor both into your evaluation. 2013 through 2019, moderate risk. The engine didn't change dramatically, but manufacturing tolerances were tightened. Trucks in this range with documented service histories from dealers or reputable shops are generally safer. But generally safer is not safe. The same inspection process applies. Watch especially for trucks in this range that were previously used commercially as fleet vehicles, work trucks, or towing rigs. Commercial use means more frequent towing loads, higher sustained RPM operation, and, critically, maintenance done by whoever the fleet operator hired, not necessarily qualified technicians with proper torque specs. 2020 through 2021, lower risk but not zero. The third-generation Frontier launched in 2022 with significant mechanical updates. The 2020 Inatra, Wilia, Yuan, Wia, Yudia. 20i and 2021 models are still second-gen. Lower risk because they're younger, but lower risk still means you should be doing your inspection. And here's something that often gets overlooked on low-mileage, newer used trucks. A 2020 Frontier with 28,000 miles sounds pristine. But if those 28,000 miles included towing near maximum capacity, off-road driving, or were racked up over a very short time period, that engine has been stressed in ways the mileage alone doesn't show. Mileage is a rough proxy for engine health. Inspection is the real answer. Let me stack the numbers for you one final time, because I want you to feel what this really costs, not just the repair bill. You find a Frontier, $15,500, seems fair for the year and mileage. Oil pressure switch threads are compromised. You don't know. 3 months of ownership. You've put 6,000 miles on it. The leak gets slightly worse. The VTC solenoid starts acting up. Engine starts ticking faintly. You take it to a mechanic. Diagnosis fee, $175. Oil pressure switch replacement with thread repair, $380. VTC solenoid cleaning and replacement, $620. Oil system flush and premium synthetic fill, $190. Labor, combined, $850. You're at 2015, and that's a best-case scenario where they caught it early, the threads were repairable, and the bearings haven't been affected yet. Now let's say you didn't catch it early. Engine knock develops. Mechanic confirms rod bearing damage. Engine rebuild. Parts and machine shop, $4,200. Labor for rebuild, $2,800. Tow to shop, $185. Rental car, 18 days at $55 per day, $990. Lost work days, conservative estimate, $400. Total additional damage, $8,575. Combined with the initial repairs you already paid, you're at $10,690 in repair costs on a $15,500 truck. Your truck's effective cost is now $26,290 for a used Nissan Frontier. That is the real price of skipping a 5-minute inspection. And this is where most owners get trapped. They think of the repair bill as one number, but the full financial damage stacks in layers that most people don't count until they're living it. The mechanic bill is just the beginning. The tow, the rental, the missed work, the stress of not having a vehicle, the negotiating with a shop over which repairs are urgent and which can wait because you're trying to manage cash flow. All of it preventable. All of it traceable back to one bolt that someone should have looked at. Before I close this out, I want to give you a complete pre-purchase inspection checklist specific to the Frontier. This is the framework I'd use personally. Print it out. Take it with you. Oil system, critical priority. Do a visual inspection under the vehicle. Check the drain plug area, the oil pan seam, and the oil pressure switch location. Do the wiggle test on the oil pressure switch. Check oil level and quality on the dipstick. Watch the oil pressure warning light on startup. It should extinguish within 2 seconds. Listen for any ticking or knocking after the engine warms up. Cooling system, high priority. Check coolant reservoir level and color. It should be green or orange depending on the fluid type, never brown. Check inside the oil filler cap for any milky residue, which signals coolant contamination. Look for white residue around coolant hoses and connections. Exhaust system, medium-high priority. On a cold start, watch the tailpipe. Light white vapor is just condensation. Blue smoke is burning oil. Black smoke is a rich fuel mixture. Any smoke that persists after 60 seconds of running is a flag. Transmission, high priority. On automatics, check the fluid via dipstick if accessible. It should be pink or red, not dark brown or burnt smelling. On manual transmissions, check for smooth engagement on all gears during the test drive. Any grinding or hesitation specifically in second and fourth gear is a red flag on the Frontier's manual. Undercarriage, high priority. Look for fresh undercoating applied to the frame. This is sometimes used to hide rust. Check where the bed meets the frame at the rear corners. That's a classic rust point. Inspect the differential housing for seepage. Documents to request, service records, specifically oil change history. Any records of sensor replacements, oil leaks, or engine work. Prior shop reports if available. If the seller refuses to provide any service documentation, that tells you something. Here's the bottom line. The Nissan Frontier is a good truck. I'm not here to tell you not to buy one. I'm here to tell you that a good truck with a hidden problem is still a problem, and the used market is full of good trucks with hidden problems that someone else already paid to create. 1 bolt, 5 minutes. The difference between a great truck and a $10,000 mistake. Check the bolt. Every time. No exceptions. Because the seller isn't going to tell you. The dealer isn't going to show you. And your bank account isn't going to thank you for trusting a test drive. The only person protecting your money is you. Now you know what to look for. Use it.